disability that makes reading, holding a book, turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publisher. For more information, just visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Now, welcome to you, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We now present a reading of articles and features from our USA Today for April the 21st of 2026. And your reader for this hour today will be Jody. And I'm going to start you out right on our front page. It is the U.S. gives Cuba a 2-week deadline. In secret talks, Havana is told to free the dissidents. The U.S. has given Cuba a 2-week deadline to release high-profile political prisoners as a gesture of good faith as part of the Trump administration's broader demands for economic and political reforms on the island. The demand was presented during a secret meeting April 10th in Cuba, according to a source. Some of the names floated for release included Luis Manuel Otero Alcantara and Mikel Osorbo, dissident artists from the San Ysidro movement who were sentenced back in 2022. Now, in a statement to USA Today, a State Department spokesperson said, the U.S. remains committed to the release of all political prisoners, including Alcantara and Osorbo. The spokesperson pointed to Trump's remarks back at an April 17th rally that a new dawn for Cuba is coming and said the regime should stop playing games as direct talks are underway. The Cuban government has a small window to make the deal, the spokesperson said. Officials told the Cuban government that the island's economy is in freefall and that its ruling elites had a narrow window to make changes before circumstances irreversibly worsened, the State Department officials have said. Now, the person said Trump is committed to a diplomatic solution if one is possible, but will not allow the island to collapse into what he views as a major national security threat if Cuba's leaders are unwilling or unable to act. Now, Cuba is on shaky ground. Tensions have been escalating between Washington and Havana for weeks, as Trump has warned a hostile takeover was possible. After capturing Venezuela's leader back in January, the Trump administration tightened long-standing sanctions and oil shipments to Cuba as part of a broader campaign to force sweeping political changes on that communist-run island. The country is already mired in a severe economic crisis, and the near-total blockade is pushing it toward collapse. Now, in recent weeks, Trump said he believed that he would have the honor of taking Cuba and that the U.S. may stop by Cuba after it finishes with Iran. The U.S. has signaled in recent days that Trump is still weighing his options. USA Today reported back on April 15th that military planning for a possible Pentagon-led operation in Cuba was quietly ramping up in case Trump gives the order to intervene. A U.S. military surveillance drone was then later spotted flying near Cuba. Asked about the Pentagon planning on Air Force One back on April 17th, Trump cryptically told a reporter, well, it depends on what your definition of military action is. All right, next up we have grieving Louisiana City is desperate for answers. Motives are still unknown in this shooting that killed 8 children. And there's a big picture, and you can see a grieving family. They're holding up candles and they're praying. They have their eyes closed and they're so sad. And it reads, a family joins a vigil April 19th in Shreveport, Louisiana, after a gunman there opened fire and killed 8 children whose ages were 3 to 11, 7 of whom those children were his, and what police have described now as an act of domestic violence. The motive is still unknown in this shooting that has killed 8 children. Residents of the historic riverfront city have remained shaken a day after a gunman opened fire and killed 8 children in the nation's deadliest mass shooting since January of 24. Now, they're looking for explanations, and authorities are trying to provide them, piecing together info on this tragedy. Police said the suspect also shot the mother of his children and then another woman, both of whom have survived with serious injuries. The shooter then fled on foot and stole a car at gunpoint, leading the police to a chase that ended with officers shooting him dead. Now, killed on April 19th were Jayla Elkins, who is 3, Shayla Elkins, 5, Kayla Pugh, 6, Layla Pugh, 7, Markadon Pugh, 10, Saraya Snow, 11, Kadarian Snow, who is 6, and Braylon Snow, who is 5, the Caddo Parish Coroner's Office has said. Authorities have identified the shooter as Shamar Elkins, 7 of those victims were his own children. Now, the motive for those killings and what set this tragedy in motion is still unknown, authorities have said. Elkins was believed to be the only suspect. Shreveport officials have described the shooting as an act of domestic violence. Court records show that Elkins married Shaniqua Pugh in April of 24. Now, another woman, Christina Snow, sued Elkins for child support, and they were granted joint custody of their child, Soraya, in 2017, the court records have shown. USA Today has reached out to the police for more information about the nature of the shooting and the relationship between the gunman and the victims. Elkins, he had served in the Louisiana Army National Guard from 2013 to 2020, serving as a signal system specialist and a fire support specialist. He was never deployed, and he left the Army as a private. Court records show Elkins had pleaded guilty to a weapons charge, and he did serve probation back in 2019. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Shreveport native, said he was in touch with local law enforcement and offered prayers to the victims and their families. Stephen Newton Sr. was wrapping up his church service on April 19th when local leaders called to tell him about the shooting. Newton said members of his church, that's the Kingdom Center Shreveport/Bossier, leaped into action and collected food and items for the family. He said that he last spoke with the family around midnight. They're just struggling to process their grief and find a way to move forward, he said. But it's amazing to see them just lean into their faith. Their spirit is very strong. Newton said the grief has rippled through the community, touching the students who will have to return to class without their peers, and neighbors who will have to walk those streets near that site of the shooting. He hopes the city can address not only the aftermath, but the root causes. If we have programs in place where we can institute some type of framework and infrastructure, I believe we can deal with the ramifications of these things proactively and not reactively, he has said. And now here's your page 1 cover story. Privacy concerns sharpen over smart glasses. Secret recordings and facial recognition are debated. Kasif Hoda was waiting for a train in Cambridge, Massachusetts when he had an encounter he clearly remembers 2 years later. A young man with weird-looking glasses asked him for directions and then walked away. A few minutes later, the man approached him again, addressed him by name, and asked about his work on minorities in India. There was something that was unsettling, if you will, about this whole thing, he said. Hoda soon found out that the moment was being recorded on those weird glasses. Now, he's included in a video viewed more than 1.2 million times on X that demonstrated how easy it is to record and identify complete strangers in near real time. In that video, technology was used behind the scenes to identify Hoda. It wasn't seamlessly incorporated into the glasses, but privacy groups fear, well, that's just a matter of time. On April the 13th, more than 75 advocacy groups issued a letter saying wearable tech represents a dystopian privacy invasion, and that is a serious threat to privacy and civil liberties for every member of our society. The letter was in response to reports that Meta plans to add real-time facial recognition on its smart glasses. Now, objection to that tech includes real-time facial recognition could be used by stalkers, scammers, and abusers to identify and track victims. Or the glasses are already used to record people without their consent, and the technology could be adopted by law enforcement to surveil immigrants, people of color, or nonviolent protesters. Meta glasses, they don't currently include tech that can identify people in real time, but they do allow for discrete recording, leading to a host of privacy and legal questions. Now, some other companies make wearable tech, but Meta's high-profile partnership with sunglasses brands like Oakley and Ray-Ban, that has attracted significant attention and scrutiny. The company referred USA Today at previous statements saying that it's still thinking through its options regarding facial recognition, and that per its terms of service, users are responsible for complying with all applicable laws and for using Ray-Ban Meta glasses in a safe, respectable manner. Now, the glasses, which allows users to send texts, make calls, listen to music, and even translate text, they have an LED light that Meta says makes it clear that the device is recording. But others say the light can be easily missed or just disabled. Whether someone can record another person without their consent and then post that video online, it depends heavily on where they are and the broader context of that situation, according to Woodrow Hartzog, who's a professor at Boston University Law School. Even though people often say there's no such thing as privacy in public, the truth is a lot more complicated, he said. He works in privacy and technology law. So why smart glasses are so hard to spot? Smart glasses can be tricky to identify because there are many different styles and they look much like regular glasses. Even if you do correctly spot a pair, it could still be tough to see if they're recording. The glasses produced by Meta in collaboration with Oakley and Ray-Ban, they are among the most common, with more than 7 million pairs sold back in 2025. Google has announced it is launching its own pair of AI-powered glasses in collaboration with Samsung, Gentle Monster, and Warby Parker. Now, one tool that can help identify them is an app that detects nearby smart glasses using Bluetooth data. More than 100,000 people have downloaded nearby glasses, according to its creator. His creator stressed that he is not a professional developer, so the app is not perfect. False positives can occur, it says, and it doesn't confirm someone is secretly recording. Not all smart glasses have cameras, and a wearer could be just using them for something else. But still, he hopes his app will give people some peace of mind. Meta glasses have an LED light in the corner opposite the camera lens, which should automatically turn on when the user is filming. But that light can be hard to spot, particularly for people who are blind or have low vision, and it could be potentially be covered up or disabled with the help of tutorials that are available online. Some learned just how hard to detect this technology can be after a stranger secretly recorded this woman while she was waiting in the airport in Washington, D.C. As an owner of Meta glasses herself, she said she noticed a man was wearing the smart glasses, but she doesn't remember seeing his light indicating they were recording. But then the video ended up on social media, prompting friends and strangers to ask her, "This guy has exposed me to where people feel they can just come up to me and shove things in my face," she said. "I feel very violated." Now, facial recognition tech amps up its privacy fears. The New York Times reported back in February that Meta is planning to integrate facial recognition technology into its smart glasses, drawing even more scrutiny from advocates and lawmakers. U.S. Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley and Edward Markey, they warned the company's sweeping access to personal information makes the technology uniquely dangerous, and the deployment would erode long-standing expectations of privacy in public areas. In the hands of a bad actor, this technology could be a remarkably powerful and dangerous tool, the senators, all Democrats, wrote in their letter to Meta Chair and CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Now, Hartzog said lawmakers need to create more specific rules tailored to the unique threat posed by the combination of facial recognition and nearly undetectable surveillance technology before it becomes ubiquitous. Now, those laws need to target not only people using the technology, but also the companies who are behind it, he said. What often gets lost in this conversation is it okay for companies to design those really sociable, hostile tools in ways that will foreseeably lead to massive violations of privacy, Hartzog has said. And let me just give you a reminder, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier radio reading service. My time is now 12:13, and I'm still in our front section. My next article is on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sidesteps pronouns case on a trans rights. Justices reject appeal by a Massachusetts parents. The Supreme Court won't decide whether a school violated a parent's constitutional right to direct the upbringing of their child when handling a student's request to be identified by a specific name and pronouns. Now, the justice's rejection of an appeal from parents in Massachusetts, it came despite that in March, the court's conservative majority granted an emergency request from California parents to block state rules aimed at preventing teachers from outing transgender students to their own parents. Now, the issue of how schools can best support transgender and gender nonconforming students has ignited fierce debates across the country, including lawsuits that the Supreme Court previously have declined to review. In the case the court on April 20th declined to hear, parents Stephen Foote and Marissa Silvestri, they said employees at the Baird Middle School in Ludlow, Massachusetts, secretly facilitated their child's social gender transition. In 2021, the student identified in the lawsuit just by the initials BF emailed the teachers and the other employees announcing they identified as gender queer and asked to be referred by a new name and an array of pronouns. Then, after that meeting with BF, the school counselor told the staff the student was still in the process of sharing the information with Foote and Silvestri. The student asked that the school continue using BF's legal name and the female pronouns when communicating with their parents. The counselor directed school employees to honor that request. Now, the parents have sued the school district, saying the school violated their parental rights protected under due process clause of the Constitution. Excuse me. A federal judge dismissed their complaint. The Boston-based First U.S. Court of Appeals likewise said the parents did not have a claim under the 14th Amendment due to the processes clause, which courts have interpreted as guaranteeing fundamental parental rights. A three-judge panel said the school's failure to disclose how a student wants to be referred to at school does not violate parental rights, in part because public schools need not offer students an educational experience tailored to the preferences of their parent. To the extent the parents oppose certain academic assignments, the use of a student's pronoun in the classroom or decisions about bathroom access and a guidance counselor speaking to a student, none of those concerns restrict parental rights under the Due Process Clause, the appeals court ruled. But last year, the Supreme Court said a Maryland public school district's refusal to allow parents to opt their children out of reading LGBTQ plus themed storybooks, it burdens parents' First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. Now, while the decision involved religious rights, which the parents in Massachusetts' case did not assert, their lawyers argued applying similar principles to fundamental parental rights is the next logical step to protect parents who object to gender ideology for moral and scientific reasons rather than just religious ones. Parental rights jurisprudence in the lower courts is a mess. Lawyers with the conservative legal organization called Alliance Defending Freedom, which represents these parents, they wrote in their appeal, the court should grant review and fix it, they said. And now we have U.S.-Iran negotiations are on shaky ground amid tension in the Strait. Iran may join talks as ceasefire deadline looms. Iran is considering attending these peace talks with the U.S. and Pakistan, a senior Iranian official told Reuters April 20th, after moves by Islamabad to end a U.S. blockade of Iran's ports. The official stressed, though, that no decision has been made. With a 2-week ceasefire set to expire on April 22nd, a senior Iranian official said Tehran was positively reviewing its participation in talks, but no final decision has been made. The comments conveyed a clear change of tone from earlier statements ruling out further talks and pledging to retaliate for U.S. aggression. Now, the Iranian official said mediator Pakistan was making positive efforts to end the U.S. blockade and ensure Iran's participation. The ceasefire had appeared in jeopardy after the U.S. said it had seized Iranian cargo ship April 19th that had tried to run the blockade in its Strait of Hormuz. Armed piracy accusation. Iran's military said the ship had been traveling from China and accused the U.S. of armed piracy, according to state media. It said it was ready to confront the U.S. over this blatant aggression, but held back because crew's families were aboard. China, who's the main buyer of Iranian crude, expressed concern over the forced interception, said Chinese President Xi Jinping, called for ships to resume passage through the strait as normal and for the conflict to be resolved through political and diplomatic channels, according to the state news news agency. Then Germany and Brazil released a joint declaration April 20th, also sharing concern over the war's impact on freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. The two countries are strongly encouraging progress toward a substantive negotiating settlement on Iran, according to this declaration. The blockade is going to remain. The U.S. has maintained the blockade of Iranian ports, while Iran has lifted and then reimposed its own blockade on maritime traffic passing through the Strait of Hormuz, which typically handles about 1/5 of the world's oil supply. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said in a statement on X that Pakistan remains fully committed to its role as an honest and sincere facilitator of lasting peace and regional stability. A Pakistani security source said that Pakistan's key mediator, Field Marshal Asim Munar, had told Trump the blockade was an obstacle to the talks and that Trump had promised to consider that advice. Trump announced the 2-week ceasefire with Iran on April 7th and now has not specified when precisely it ends. A Pakistani source involved in the talks said it would expire at 8 p.m. on April the 21st. Now, asked over the weekend about the chance of a ceasefire extension, Trump replied, "I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I won't extend it, but the blockade, it is going to remain." Israel and Lebanon talks to continue. Now, meanwhile, a second round of talks between Israel and Lebanon are slated to take place in Washington, D.C., an Israeli source told USA Today. The talks will take place April 23rd, with Israel represented by its ambassador to the U.S., Yishel Leiter, a source told Reuters. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to a 10-day ceasefire last week, and that took effect April the 16th. The talks, details of which are not yet confirmed, will be the first between these two nations since the pause in the fighting. Israel has been battling Hezbollah in Lebanon since early March after the Iranian-backed militant group attacked Israel in response to the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, February the 28th, in a joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike. And lastly, Trump contradicts the energy secretary. Oil prices eased April 20th from early highs to stand around 3% to 4% up on the day as traders remained fearful the ceasefire would collapse. Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz was at a virtual standstill with just 3 crossings in the space of 12 hours. Now, Trump is disputing comments by his administration's chief energy official over the rising gas prices as spiking costs squeeze markets and pocketbooks and threaten our summer travel season. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said in an April 19th interview with CNN that gas prices may not drop below $3 a gallon until next year. When asked about the projection in a phone interview with The Hill, the next day Trump said, "I think he's wrong about that, totally wrong." The president added that gas prices will fall after the end of the Iran war, a refrain that he and other top administration officials have repeated for weeks since this conflict has begun. And now next up I have hurricane ratings. They worry the experts. Well-known storm scale can miss real impacts. From Category 1 to Category 5, hurricane forecasters' famous rating system, it has become ingrained in the minds of millions of Americans. The scale, now it's known as the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. It's a ratings based on the storm's maximum sustained wind speed, which ranges from 74 to 157 miles per hour or higher for a hurricane. It does remain popular in part because of its simplicity. But the scale, it has been long criticized for its simplicity too. It does not take into account potentially deadly hurricane hazards like storm surge, rainfall, flooding, and tornadoes, and that worries these hurricane forecasters. We've been trying to de-emphasize it, says John Caniglioso, a senior hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center. Instead, the group has worked to focus on the dangers from each individual storm, whether it's the wind, the storm surge, heavy rain, or a combination of all. History of the Saffir-Simpson scale. Now, this scale was developed by structural engineer Herbert Saffir back in 1969 as part of a United Nations project. It was later adapted by meteorologist Robert Simpson back in the early 70s, and it has been an integral tool for alerting the public about the dangers of hurricanes of various intensities ever since. The scale has been compared to a similar but different rating system that's for tornadoes. In the Fujita Tornado Damage Scale, meteorologists assign a ranking only after examining the damage the tornado has done. The Hurricane Center assigns categories based on forecast estimates of the hurricane's fastest wind speed. Limitations of this scale. The limitations of the Saffir-Simpson scale recently have come under scrutiny because wind speed often is only an estimate. Now, in addition, it also is highly localized because it depends on a speed sustained for just a short time in one place. National Hurricane Center Director Michael Brennan told USA Today the scale only describes the wind threat and only describes the threat from the peak winds of the storm that typically occur over just a very small area. So that's just one of the scale's many limitations. It also doesn't take into account deadly dangers like storm surge, flooding, rainfall totals, or where the storm will even hit. Now that leads to awkward situations. A monster Category 5 storm can sound scary, but it could pose no threat to people spinning out at the sea. But a mild-sounding Category 1 storm, that could cause death and destruction if it just hits the wrong location. So, how about a new scale? Meteorologist Jeff Masters of Yale Climate Connections, he suggested a new approach. We really need 3 scales instead of just one to measure hurricane severity, he says. We need one for wind, one for storm surge, and one for rainfall. Now, among the others who would like to see the scale adjusted is Jennifer Collins. She's a hurricane researcher at the University of South Florida. To keep people safe, well, it's time for a change, she has said. She and a team from the Netherlands, they published a paper in the summer of 25 as an alternative to the Saffir-Simpson scale. The authors proposed the Tropical Cyclone Severity Scale. Now that incorporates storm surge and rainfall in addition to the wind. Our scale would be very simple for the public to transition to, she said. We can't just have a wind scale. Wind only equals about 8% of the fatalities, she said. Rainfall accounts for about 27 of fatalities. We've been using this Saffir-Simpson scale, and we have been over-relying on it for way too long. All right, now my next article is about an elephant. A baby elephant forms a new bond after rejection by her mother. And they have the cutest picture of a little baby elephant. You can see he's so young, and he has his trunk curled around a wire. And the caption reads, Lin Mai, who's a 2-month-old Asian elephant. She's here at the National Zoo on April 14th in Washington, D.C. An older female elephant at the Smithsonian National Zoo is raising the herd's newest addition. Now that's a 2-month-old baby calf after the baby was rejected by her own mother. The National Zoo confirmed this situation in an email to USA Today. Lin Mai, or that means spirit blossom in Vietnamese, she was born on February the 2nd to her mother, Nai Lin. She's the zoo's first calf in about 25 years and is set to make her public debut on April the 22nd. However, the mother and her baby have struggled to bond. According to a blog post on February the 12th, written by Tony Barthel, who's the zoo's director, the zoo staff separated the pair after Ni Lin began acting kind of aggressively toward her calf. The elephant had never experienced a birth, he said, and it had never interacted with a calf before. So how have the other elephants interacted? Zoo staff hoped that the pair would have explored each other after the birth, but Ni Lin swung her trunk, kicked her feet, and threw hay, they said. Ni Lin's behavior showed us that she was not ready to safely share space with her newborn. The situation did not improve then. In a blog post on February the 25th, Bartel wrote that Ni Lin had exhibited conflicted feelings about her own calf. On one hand, she does show interest in Lin Mai and responds whenever she vocalizes, he said. But on the other hand, she does not appear comfortable with the interaction and the proximity of her daughter. Sometimes she shows her discomfort by displaying frustration and aggression towards her own calf. Now, Bosie, who's a dominant female in the zoo's herd, she has acted as a guardian for the baby. In instances where the mother is acting aggressively, the elephant nudges her with her foot and tries to push her back or slap her tail against her own leg. When that happens in Ni Lin, then she stops the aggression. Lin May forms bond with this older female elephant. The baby has since developed a strong bond with Swarna. Now, that's another one of the zoo's elephants, according to a post. When these two met, Swarna gently and regularly explored Lin May. When the two then came face to face, Swarna walked calmly behind Lin May while the calf explored the enclosure and stood next to her as she drank her morning bottle. Because the baby cannot nurse from its mother, caretakers are now bottle feeding this elephant. The zoo's nutrition team selected a milk replacement formula for the baby based on a nutritional analysis of Asian elephant breast milk. Swarna is now teaching this little one how to socialize and communicate. The zoo's staff hopes that the elephant's bond will help the other members of the herd see this baby as part of its own group. Caretakers have described Lin May as rambunctious, sassy, and playful. Even though Lin May is not with her own mother, Nai Lin, she is full of life and she's tons of fun. Robbie Clark, who's an elephant manager and acting curator of Elephant Trails, wrote, "We're all really excited for all of our fans to get a chance to meet her soon. I know that they will fall in love with her as much as we have," Clark has said. And now let me remind you again, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. My time is 12:29, and I'm going to take you over to my money section. Here's my first article on the money. Wealth planning is becoming affordable. Options abound for free and low-cost advice. One marker of wealth in America is an ongoing relationship with a financial advisor. Certified financial planners and money managers, they tend to serve clients with considerable wealth to manage. Now, the services are commonly associated with high net worth, which typically means more than $1 million in investable assets, not counting your own home. But by the same token, many Americans with less wealth don't want to spend money on a financial planner or a wealth manager. They might not think that their assets are complicated enough to justify hiring a professional. But fortunately, options do abound for free or low-cost financial advice, from one-off sessions with financial advisors to online libraries of financial tips and retirement planning calculators. But one problem with free off-the-shelf financial advice is that it's fundamentally generic rather than being tailored to your own finances. And another problem is your financial needs, they change over time. A session with a financial planner today might not speak to your finances a year or two from now. So with those caveats out of the way, here are some options for free or low-cost financial service for you. The first one they have is consult your broker or retirement plan administrator. Many online brokerages and 401k administrators, including Fidelity, Vanguard, and Charles Schwab, they offer free or low-cost help for investors and retirement savers. Fidelity, for example, offers access to licensed financial advisors with no fee, and any subsequent fees based on products or services are chosen by their investor. Schwab offers a robo-advisor, Schwab Intelligent Portfolios, with no fee. Now, next they say check with your bank. Many banks and credit unions offer free financial advice and financial planning resources, often available to anyone. Like Bank of America, for example, they collect financial guidance on a Better Money Habits site. Capital One, they offer a financial success hub. USAA, that offers your financial readiness and a storehouse of financial advice. Citi offers a library of financial planning tools. Now, ask your employer. Many large companies offer free financial advice to employees, often in partnership with a 401k provider, and that's part of their benefits package. Get pro bono financial planning. For low-income Americans and underserved groups, the Financial Planning Association offers a pro bono financial planning service. Next, set up a free meeting with a financial advisor. Many financial advisors will schedule an initial session with a potential client at no cost to them. Now, that's a good place to start, and then you could decide whether to proceed into a full-fledged relationship. We offer a free initial consultation, and I, along with most financial planners, we want to help as many people as we can, says Jonathan Swanberg, a certified financial planner. But there's only so much you can accomplish in just a single meeting. Dwyer, the Ohio CFP, says it's a waste of time for investors to meet with an advisor who have no intention of ever engaging them. Next, they say get a robo-advisor. You might wince at the idea of entrusting your finances to an algorithm, but robo-advisors, they have become an established financial planning and investment tool. Robo-advisors generally are automated services with minimal human oversight, according to Investopedia. The advisor might query you on your finances and goals and then make investment choices on your behalf. And last, they say, consider a flat fee advisor. Your relationship with a financial advisor, it doesn't have to be forever. You can pay them by the hour or with a flat fee. When an advisor works on a one-off project, such as writing a retirement plan, the fees can range from $2,000 all the way up to $15,000. Hourly rates could be $150 to $1,000 an hour. The advantage to paying a financial planner a flat fee is that you limit your outlay. Like for someone seeking basic investment advice, it might be the perfect fit. If all I need is, do I have the right stock bond mix, there are probably a lot of fee-based advisors who could answer that question. But the problem with a one-off financial planning meeting, they said, is that your financial needs, they evolve over time. I could charge $5,000 for a one-time plan, he said, and I know with a high degree of certainty that it's probably going to be obsolete in the next 6 to 12 months. And now we're going to talk about modern fraud. AI is to blame for increase in consumer fraud. Sophisticated artificial intelligence-driven fraud is increasingly targeting U.S. consumers who are falling victim to schemes who steal their IDs, their credit cards, or make fraudulent charges, a new analysis has found. According to the latest Top Fraud Trends report by TransUnion, 1 in 6 U.S. consumers said they have lost money to digital fraud in the form of email, online, phone call, or text messaging scams. The median reported loss is $2,307. Fraud is big and it's growing. It's everywhere and it's not going away, Clint Lowry, VP of Global Fraud Solutions, said. Generative AI has likely accelerated the scale and sophistication of this criminal activity. AI is a powerful tool that businesses like TransUnion can use to protect consumers, but fraudsters can and also are using it to their own advantage. Now, with the advent of AI, you get these incredibly professional fraud schemes that can be done very quickly and easily by anyone who has very limited resources, he has said. Digital fraud is on the rise. Americans were disproportionately affected by stolen credit cards and fraudulent charge schemes, according to this report. 1/3 of U.S. consumers who lost money to digital fraud, they cited such attacks as the cause. It was the highest reported category in the country and significantly higher than the global rate of 19%. So what industries saw the biggest amount of fraud? Sectors that focus on consumer interaction, social connection, and entertainment, they saw the largest number of incidents with fraud in the U.S., the report said. Online dating sites saw a 7% increase. Now, 7% increase, while nearly 1 in 10 U.S. transactions on gaming sites, those were flagged for digital fraud. So, what can consumers do to protect themselves? Lowry has offered a few tips to protect yourself against fraud, including using different strong passwords for your accounts, relying on a password manager, and then using two-factor authentication measures. Check your credit reports and putting in place credit freezes to protect those reports. That could be helpful, he says. Protect your identity and don't give out too much info online, including oversharing on social media, since fraudsters can take that information to hack into your accounts. Fraudsters, they prey on people's good nature. They prey on people's charity. And in some cases, they prey on that fear, Lowry has said. Now, I have putting a brick on a phone, it comes at a cost. The device can help cut screen time for some. Now, a brick, it's this little square thing. You can see a picture of it. It's in a person's fingers. And it reads, intended to create physical screen time barrier. The brick is a device that connects wirelessly to smartphones via NFC or near field communication. Paired with the Brick app, users can brick or block apps on their websites on their phones by enabling a brick session in the app and then tap on the brick. And like I said, it's a square little plastic looking thing that says brick. It's about 1 inch and it's in the person's fingers. So it says the device can help cut screen time for some. Screen time, it brings us together, it tears us apart, and more people are wanting distance from it. In recent years, several apps and devices have entered the market promoting a phone-free or at least a less phone lifestyle. Now, one of these gaining widespread traction is called Brick, which wirelessly connects to smartphones to block apps and websites selected by the user for any given period of time. Now, unlike smartphone screen time limits, which can easily be bypassed, the brick it offers a physical hard stop to digital overconsumption. So, is the brick hype worth it? Here are some insights into how this device works and my own experience with bricking. What happened? All right. So, what is brick and how does this work? The brick is a device that connects wirelessly to smartphones. Paired with the free Brick mobile app, a user can brick or block apps and websites by enabling a brick session in the app, and then you tap the phone to the brick. The apps and the websites can only be accessed again once the user opens the brick app and then taps the phone back on this little gray brick box. The brick is powered by NFC, or Near Field Communication. It's a short form wireless technology that's similar to Apple Pay. So, what it was like bricking my own phone for 2 weeks. My screen time, it ebbs and flows, as I often have no social media apps on my phone, with my own LinkedIn, of course, accepted. When I do, though, I only download Instagram, but I find myself glued to my phone even while I watch TV or I lay in bed. So as of April the 10th, my daily average screen time for the week was about 4 hours and 40 minutes, with messages and Instagram seeing the most. Now, I found the most success using the brick during evenings and into the mornings. Before going to bed, I placed the brick in the living room and I tapped my phone into brick session and went to bed, unable to access any of my typical doom scroll apps or email. Then, waking up, I wasn't even tempted to check any apps because I just couldn't. The longest I bricked my phone was about 14 hours on a Saturday. It was a busy day I had with friends, so I doubt I would have been on my phone much anyhow. But removing the ability to do a quick Instagram search during downtime, that felt nice. However, I will say the brick felt a bit pointless during the workday. While at work, I find myself scouring social media for story ideas on my desk. Through Instagram and LinkedIn, though Instagram and LinkedIn may have been bricked on my phone during this experiment, I could easily just access those sites right on my computer. So is $60 really worth it? Though I am someone who already feels decent about my phone screen time, I just don't think brick is worth this $60. Mostly, I fear I fell victim to the system in which brick thrives. Spend too much on social media? Algorithm learns you don't want to be on social media. Algorithm displays targeted ads for ways to get you off social media. Consumer buys into ways to get off social media. Is this what we've come to? Having to buy a $60 piece of tech to get away from our $1,000 plus piece of tech? So what do others think about this brick? The consensus around the brick is it's positive. With more than 33,000 reviews, the Brick mobile app, it boasts a 4.9 star rating on the Apple App Store. USA Today video producer Nikki Gunter, who used the brick since October 25, said it really changed how she has used her phone. She often uses her brick to block Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, and Facebook during the evenings once her children are in bed. On average, her phone is bricked about 12 hours a day. The longest she has bricked her phone was a full social media detox. It was 12 days. It helped my attention span, especially with my daughter, who has not asked me to put my phone down in months, she said. Are there free brick alternatives? Now, scouring the internet, it's hard to initially come across criticism of the brick. But for those who have tried the device and were unsatisfied, the notes remain largely the same. There are cheaper or perhaps free alternatives. In the subreddit r/dumpphones, intended for discussion about disconnecting from smartphones, some users have recommended free mobile apps such as Freedom, ScreenZen, and NoScroll. Now that allows users to set app-specific blocks and time limits. I think a lot of these products are leaving the realm of well-intentioned and are just becoming opportunistic in response to growing trends in reducing time spent online. One Reddit user has commented in the group, "The best cure is just delete all the apps and to work to change your own habits." And finally, the last question is, where can you buy this brick? The brick is available exclusively on the Brick website at getbrick.com/products/the-brick. One brick is typically $60, though deals are often offered, it says. And let me remind you again, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. My time is 12:43, and I am still in the money section. And now we have USA Today's Human Resource column written by our expert Johnny C. Taylor. Here's Ask Johnny. Our first question says, if you don't have a path to promotion, consider these career moves. And here's the actual question. I'm 36 and I've spent 5 years at my company with strong performance reviews. My manager is 71 and has no plan to retire and holds the only role above mine. So, with no path to promotion, I feel stuck. Is it reasonable to expect me to wait years to move up, or should I perhaps be looking elsewhere? And this was asked by Rosa. Here's Johnny's answer to Rosa. You're not wrong to want movement, and you're not wrong to question waiting indefinitely. People are working longer. Career timelines have stretched. That is reality. But extended careers at the top, they can create real bottlenecks below. What you're feeling, well, it's increasingly common. So the key question, it isn't your manager's age, it's your access to growth. Start with a professional development conversation, not about your manager's retirement, not about timelines you can't control. Talk about you. Ask what experiences would prepare you for the next level. Ask where you can expand the scope of your work now. A strong leader should care about your growth, even if they aren't going anywhere. Growth doesn't only mean promotion. It means broader responsibility, bigger and higher level projects, cross-functional exposure, increased visibility. If those opportunities exist, we'll take advantage of them, he says. Now also look laterally. Many careers accelerate sideways before they can move up. Different teams, different functions, new skill sets. Internal mobility is often the smartest first move. Now here's the harder truth. If there's truly no pathway in your company, no expanded scope, no internal options, no succession planning, well, you may be facing structural stagnation. And structure rarely fixes itself. Loyalty matters, but so does your career momentum. If you're continuing to perform at a high level and the only message to you is sit tight and we'll see what happens, well, that's not a development plan. That's called a holding pattern. You don't have to leave tomorrow, but you should always manage your career actively. Build some new skills, strengthen your network, keep your options open. Exploring externally, that's not disloyal. It is responsible. Careers shouldn't feel paused indefinitely. If you can grow where you are, well, do so and do it. But if you can't, move on. And here's my next article. Excuse me. Faced with rising costs, Americans are cutting some streaming services. Avenues to escape daily stress are narrowing, with more Americans forced to give up some of their streaming services to save money. Now, that's according to a new study. About 40% of Americans polled by the consulting firm Deloitte said that they have cut back in the last 3 months on their entertainment subscriptions because of financial concerns. About half of all consumers said they paid too much for streaming video services, and then nearly 75% expressed frustration that prices of their entertainment subscriptions, they just continue to rise, the study said. High food and gas price, as well as other inflationary items, they're taking a toll on Americans' discretionary spending, says Stephen Connors, who's founder and president of Connors Wealth Management. They are forced to cut the one thing that they love most, their entertainment. While Americans may feel a void with fewer opportunities to binge watch, financial advisors, they cheer that move. Someone actually auditing their subscriptions and making cuts, well, that's a financially aware person who's taking action, and I'd call that a positive trend, says Christopher Walsh, who's a regional marketing director and financial advisor at Capital Choice Financial Group. Now, cutting back on streaming is generally a good move for a couple of reasons, Walsh says. You stop wasting money on things that aren't bringing you any real value, and then you free up money that could be going towards your debt, your life insurance, or your retirement contributions that your future self will then thank you for. How much do Americans spend on streaming? Americans love their streaming services, with 83% saying they watch videos on them, according to Pew Research. Only 10% said they've never even used a streaming service. Now, for this luxury, the average subscriber household spends about $69 monthly on their video streaming service subscriptions. Millennials spend more than any other generation at an average of about $76 per month. Prices are rising. Netflix raised the monthly price of its ad-supported tier by $1. Now it's $8.99 per month, according to plans and pricing listed on the streamer's online help center. But the ad-free plans, they increased by $2 a month. The monthly price is stated on March 26 for new subscribers. Members are being notified by email a month before the new prices go into effect for them, Netflix has said. The exact timing, though, it depends on the specific members' billing cycle. So is now a good time to increase prices? 61% of consumers said they would likely cancel their favorite SVOD service if the monthly subscription price increased by $5, the study said. The study didn't survey smaller increases like Netflix's just $1 or $2 a month. And finally, they say, what will Americans do now instead? As for new pastimes, there are still free options like the free YouTube videos on the internet for those who want to continue watching something on the couch, Connors said. But with summer ahead, perhaps it will just get more people outside, he said. Exercise, reading, and other low to no cost alternatives, that can be a great replacement. And for savings for the savings from having cut a subscription entertainment service, where the money goes next is what matters, he says. In my practice, that conversation usually ends with someone paying down their credit card, or finally getting the life insurance their family needs, or putting more towards retirement. And that's a pretty good outcome for just canceling your Netflix. And now I'm going to take you back to our front page section for my next article. It's about the water use and the drought. Strict water use rules are sweeping the nation. 45 of 50 states in drought before the summer starts. Is it dry enough for you? With drought stretching from coast to coast, water restrictions already are in effect in many states even before our thirsty summer season begins. Indeed, more than 61% of the nation is now in a drought, the highest percentage in nearly 4 years, according to the most recent U.S. Drought Monitor. In all, 45 of 50 states are enduring drought. Now, only Alaska, North Dakota, Michigan, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, those are completely drought-free, just those states. At the South Texas Botanical Garden and Nature Center, staff members are promoting reusing water from sources like humidifiers, leftover tea, and water from boiled eggs, the Corpus Christi Caller-Times said as part of the USA Today's network. Staff are hand watering plants just 2 to 3 times per week. One Arizona town is warning its residents they could officially run out of water by July, Fox 10 reported. Kearney, Arizona, now that's home to about 2,000 people, is asking residents to conserve by 30%, meaning no car washing, watering your lawn, or filling your pool, and if possible, shorter showers and perhaps fewer laundry days. As drought conditions persist, cities and states around the country are implementing water restrictions and suggesting from taking shorter showers to rules on how to wash your car. States impacted by recent drought regulations, that includes Colorado, the Carolinas, Virginia, Texas, Florida, and others. Towns across the nation, they add rules on watering your lawns and washing cars. In the Carolinas, people are now learning to live with these new water restrictions as drought conditions worsen. WSOC-TV in Charlotte has reported. On April the 16th, Charlotte Water announced it will implement voluntary restrictions on non-essential water use. Now that's like watering your lawn and washing your car. WSOC-TV said water companies are asking customers to do their part in response to extreme drought conditions impacting much of the area. With little rain in our forecast and warmer temps ahead, these restrictions will be in place until further notice. As severe drought conditions continue to persist across Colorado, many cities and municipalities have declared water restrictions to preserve limited water supplies. Colorado Public Radio said in its report, most are at least recommending voluntary restrictions, which generally include limiting your outdoor watering, while others, though, have enacted mandatory watering restrictions, including fines. Now that's done by Denver Water. This comes as the worst snowpack on record ever for the state. Caroline County, now that's in eastern Virginia, announced on April 16th that effective immediately, restrictions would be in place for residents who get their water from the public water system. Residents and businesses will have to use their automatic irrigation systems only on alternating days because simultaneous use has been overloading the county's water storage and treatment capacity. In Sarasota County, said its enforcement of lawn watering violations, that's stepping up as well. The county usually gives warnings, but starting on April 17th, no warnings will be given, just citations will be issued. Drought rules are impacting local businesses. In Raleigh, North Carolina, starting April 20th, the city of Raleigh will implement water restrictions for residents and businesses due to an ongoing statewide drought. Raleigh officials said the drought rules include restaurants who serve tap water only upon request. Hotels, motels, and other accommodations will ask guests staying more than one night to reuse their towels and sheets rather than washing them every single day. So how long will these restrictions last? No idea, Raleigh Water Assistant Director told the news. Unless we get some miracle rain in the next couple of weeks, we're going to stay in these stage 1 restrictions. Several Florida communities are requiring water conservation of their residents or businesses. In Sarasota County, aesthetic fountains can run up only 4 hours a day. Restaurants are serving water only on request. So, here's how you can help conserve water. Here's a sampling of some of the water-saving tips. First, they have before a drought. Never pour water down the drain when there might be another use for it. Example, water your plants. And fix dripping faucets, check all your plumbing for leaks. Choose appliances designed for greater efficiency. Plant drought-tolerant or native grasses and plants. Position your sprinklers to avoid your paved areas. Cover your pool and your spa to reduce water evaporation. During a drought, take short showers instead of a bath. Turn on the water only to get wet, then lather off, and then turn it back on to rinse off. Avoid letting the water run while you brush your teeth, you wash your face, or you shave. Operate clothes washers only when they're fully loaded and set the water level for the size of your load. If your lawn does require watering, do it in the early morning or later evening when it's cooler. In extreme drought, allow lawns to die in favor of preserving your trees and your shrubs. Use a commercial car wash that recycles water. If you do wash your own car, use a shut-off nozzle that can be adjusted down to just a fine spray. Farms, AI data centers, they are among big water users. In Oregon, farmers, ranchers, and some communities will face water restrictions this summer, the experts said. This is going to be a much shorter irrigation system with water that is available, says Matt Warburton, USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service Supervisory Hydrologist. He has added that the stage was set for more prolonged and severe wildfires. Larry O'Neill, who's the Oregon state climatologist, told the Capitol Press that grim conditions could serve as a call to action for policymakers, especially if economic impacts stack up. This isn't a garden variety dry year, he said. Basically, this is a test of our resiliency to a change in the snowpack and our water supply. Drought can have a devastating impact on agriculture, which uses nearly half of all U.S. fresh water. Withdrawals about 47%, and that's mostly, of course, for crop irrigation, making it the largest water-using sector, the USDA and the U.S. Geological Survey said. Now, meanwhile, high-tech data centers, they are also a big source of water use. Estimates show a single large data center that can use up to billions of gallons of water a year, or as much as 2.7 million gallons a day during its peak summer heat, according to a report. Artificial intelligence data centers are occasionally bound to local water restrictions, but in much of the country, they run with few limits, even during water shortages. Now, this is because most water and drought rules were enacted before the demand for AI scale cooling. And let me just remind you, you've been listening to a reading of articles from our USA Today for Tuesday, April the 21st of 2026 on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return to you for more readings just after this short break today. And your reader for this hour today has been Jody.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Barbara. Sports. Win now mentality fuels NFL 26 trade wins by Jarrett Bell. If you're like me, searching for answers about what is fueling this extremely active NFL trade market, perhaps there's no better source to tap than Les Snead. I mean the Los Angeles Rams general manager who pulled off the blockbuster trade in March to land all-pro cornerback Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs is well suited to host an NFL version of Let's Make a Deal. According to his track record, Snead is not shy about picking up the phone and making a pitch, or taking a call, running the numbers, and coming back with a counteroffer. That he actually has a first-round pick for the draft that kicks off the night of April 23rd, at least he does at the moment, has a Ripley's Believe It or Not flavor. Over the last 10 drafts, including this one, Snead traded his first-round pick 9 times. The one he kept in 2024, he used on edge rusher Jared Verse, who only became NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year after being picked 19th overall. More proof of Snead's chops as a talent evaluator. Of course, the first-round pick he's holding now, 14th overall, came in a trade last year with the Falcons, while LA's own first-round pick for 26 was sent to KC in the McDuffie deal. All told, these are the markings of a man who likes action. Then there was the classic moment at the Super Bowl 56 championship parade that was enabled by the trades in 2021 that landed 2 key cogs to the title run, Matthew Stafford and Jalen Ramsey, with the combined cost including 4 first-round picks. Snead wore a t-shirt bearing his face on the front along with the message, F them picks. So why so many trades this year? Maybe it's our fault. Maybe it's the Rams' fault, Snead, grinning, told USA Today Sports as we chatted in a breezeway during the recent NFL owners' meetings. Most active NFL trade market in a decade. Through April 17th, NFL teams had executed 21 trades since the league year opened on March 11th, which ranks as the second most pre-draft deals since 2016. And another one came over the weekend when the New York Giants dealt star defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th pick overall on April 23rd, giving the G-Men 2 top 10 picks in the first round for new coach John Harbaugh's first draft. What a pattern. Per research from the NFL's Player Personnel Department, provided to the USA Today Sports, the only year since 2016 with more pre-draft trades was 2018 with 26. I'm not surprised that this is a year that's so active, Snead said. It just seems like we're becoming a more active league. And that could be because front offices, organizations are being more aggressive. Players may have a bit of a say too, where things are, hey, maybe I'd like a change of scenery. I'm at the stage of my career, and you all are at this stage of your window. It's worth noting that there's been a tremendous turnover in recent years in the GM ranks, as 11 general managers, including Rob Brzezinski, interim for the Vikings, assumed their posts since 2024. Go back 3 more years to 2021, and there are 18 new GMs during that span. Such a turnover rate may be typical for head coaches, but it's not common for GMs, who often stay on their jobs for over multiple head coaches. Maybe dots can be connected to an influx of younger, more aggressive GMs. Maybe not. I think it just shows that people are wanting to be aggressive and they want to win. They want to change their teams, said Carolina Panthers GM Dan Morgan, who assumed his post in 2024. We do live in a time where you've got to win or the weight's going to come down on your back. So maybe some people feel the pressure to do that. Besides, the extremely active Snead has been on his job for 15 years. Howie Roseman, the Philadelphia Eagles' top shot caller, and undeniably one to keep an eye on for dealing before and during the draft, is in his 17th year as GM. Tenure, or lack thereof, is hardly a defining factor, yet times have clearly changed. When I first started, the environment was a lot less aggressive in terms of trading and using draft capital, Snead said. Why a high volume of traders are expected during 2026 NFL Draft. Now, the aggressive environment and the fact that the draft window is typically the most active trading period on the NFL calendar sets the stage for a draft-themed continuation of the action prevalent during the last few weeks. In other words, the forecast for the draft calls for strong trade wins. I think that the fans will be in for a treat, Chiefs General Manager Brett Veach, who could be in the middle of the action with an ammunition that includes 2 first-round picks, 9th and 29th overall, said during a video conference last week. Vesh expects activity could be influenced by close grades grouping tackles, defensive ends, and receivers, which leads to variation of value from team to team. I think the grades are so close that it'll come down to the scheme fit, the coach's analysis, the vision, the fit for these guys. I think it should be an entertaining night, and there will probably be a lot of trades, Veach said. And that's what I think with a draft like this, when you don't have 2 or 3 franchise quarterbacks and a Will Anderson Jr. or a Myles Garrett, it does lend itself to open up a lot of fun and a lot of excitement. Of course, with rumors persisting all off season that A.J. Brown was on the trade block, Roseman naturally repeated his standard response, A.J. Brown's an Eagle, when the star receiver's name was brought up during Philadelphia's pre-draft presser. One name definitely crossed off the could-be-traded list, Devon Achane. New Dolphins GM John Eric Sullivan reiterated as much last week while putting a positive spin on negotiations for a contract extension for the dynamic running back. Yet Sullivan, holding 11 picks as he tries to stock a roster overhaul, surely acknowledges the conditions attached to options that include maneuvering for higher slots or adding capital. Miami is one of 6 teams with multiple first-round picks, 11th and 30th overall. I'm always going to pick up the phone, said Sullivan, previously the Packers VP of player personnel. I think it probably is fair to say more likely to move back than move up. I mean, I think we need all 11 picks, but you never say never. Sullivan characterized some of the phone calls between teams in the days leading up to the draft as superficial, although he realizes that checking the pulse of whether teams are open to trading is part of the due diligence. Sure, he said of a typical reply, let's talk on draft day. The way the hot trade market has rolled so far this year, the phone lines will be burning up. NBA playoffs. Voila! Magic reveal Pistons false early. Lorenzo Reyes. The first weekend of the 2025-26 NBA playoffs has wrapped up, with each first-round series having one game completed. And thus far, all but one of the higher seeds have taken care of home court advantage. But the playoffs are a long haul, and series can change on an instant. So who was the biggest winner in the series opening games? The unlikely Orlando Magic, who stole a victory against the Detroit Pistons on April 19th in Detroit. Let's be honest, the Pistons probably still win the Eastern Conference first round series, but this was a massive game for Orlando, whose coach, Jamal Mosley, came into the playoffs facing some pressure about his future. The Magic excelled in the paint on both ends, despite Detroit leading the NBA this season with 57.9 points in the paint per game. In Game 1, Orlando held the Pistons to 34 points in the paint and generated a 20-point advantage in the category in the 112-101 win. All 5 Magic starters reached double digits in scoring, and Orlando, which plays a similar type as Detroit, showed it won't just roll over. The shocking 8-seed versus 1-seed upset exposed some of Detroit's issues. For one, the Pistons clearly need more shooting. Cade Cunningham posted a monster game with 39 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, but his supporting cast let him down. All-Star center Jalen Duren was mostly a non-factor, and Tobias Harris was the only other player to reach double digits in scoring. Credit the Magic for their defense, but the Pistons looked flat, almost like they were the ones who had to roll through the play-in tournament. Detroit had the week off and entered as an 8.5 favorite. Instead, the Pistons lost their 11th consecutive home playoff game and now have to search for answers. And, to be frank, it makes it feel like the Boston Celtics are the team to beat in the East. Game 2 is April 22nd at 7 p.m. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. Confident and competitive. CB prospect Colton Hood has a cool NFL birthday gift in store for his mom. NFL draft prospect Colton Hood is on the verge of giving his mother, Crystal, a memorable gift. The draft is on her birthday, the Tennessee Volunteers cornerback said to USA Today Sports. I think that would be like a really good birthday present for her. Family is very important to Colton, who grew up with 7 siblings. His father, Benji, used to make his children write down goals. Colton's long-term goal was to make it to the NFL. 6, Colton reminisced about the age he decided he wanted to play in the NFL. As soon as I started playing football, as soon as I started playing football is in Colton's DNA. His brother, Brandon, played running back at Colorado in 2024 before transferring to play for UMass. Colton's uncle, Roderick Hood, was a defensive back in the NFL for 8 seasons and has become Colton's personal defensive back coach. I definitely look up to him. I actually talk to him like almost every day. He's my personal coach. I definitely looked up to him. He's taught me everything I pretty much know about DB in itself, he said of Roderick. You know, my technique and everything, the way I play. The mentality I play with comes from him and my dad. He's definitely been a big help and a big part of my career so far. Colton started his college career at Auburn before transferring to Colorado. He then played his final collegiate season at Tennessee. Colton said he gained knowledge at each of his 3 stops. At Colorado, Colton was coached by the person many consider the best cornerback ever, Deion Sanders. The biggest thing he taught me was just about film study, learning how to study film, how much better you can be as a player if you study film really, really well, Colton said of what he learned from Sanders. Colton is one of 16 prospects who will attend the draft April 23rd in Pittsburgh. He's projected to be a first-round pick as one of the top cornerbacks. However, if you ask Colton, he believes he's the best. I would say one of my competitiveness, like my competitive nature, you're not going to find that in any other player in this class. It's hard to find, really, on this earth, I believe, Colton said. I would say I'm technically sound, and I'm a complete corner. I cover, I tackle, I do everything. He was named to the 2025 All-SEC second team, and he was on the 2025 Fall SEC academic honor roll. He's an athlete that does it the right way, Tennessee coach Josh Heupel said of Colton at Tennessee's Purdue per 247 Sports. He's smart, tough, relentless competitor that cares about the people around him. Colton told USA Today Sports he met with the New York Jets, Dallas Cowboys, Seattle Seahawks, Houston, Texas, Kansas City Chiefs, Las Vegas Raiders, and Atlanta Falcons as part of the NFL's top 30 visits, where each team can bring up to 30 players in for a visit as part of their scouting process. one of the most complete cornerbacks in the draft, NFL media analyst Daniel Jeremiah said about Colton in a recent mock draft. Colton said whichever team selects him will get a hyper-competitive player on the field. They will get a dog, somebody who is competitive and has an insatiable hunger to be great. I'm a hard worker and just somebody who's going to go out there and compete every snap. Whenever Colton gets selected, Whenever Colton gets selected, the first person he will look to is his mother in what will undoubtedly be a special birthday present for her and a dream realized for him. Fitzpatrick wins dramatic RBC over Scheffler by Adam Schupak. Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. After bogeying the final hole of regulation, Matt Fitzpatrick had a short time to regroup before a sudden death playoff against world number one Scottie Scheffler. Fitzpatrick's caddy, Daniel Parrott, said his boss is mentally tough and he expected him to be in the proper mindset, but he didn't want to take his chances. So on the way to the tee, he sidled up to Fitzpatrick and said, We'd have taken this start of the week. Fitzpatrick had watched a documentary on Rory McIlroy's victory at the 2025 Masters just a week ago, where McIlroy's caddy had used the same line. It broke the ice for Fitzpatrick, who jokingly said, "Oh, okay, here he is, Harry Diamond." After a good laugh, Fitzpatrick got down to business. One hole after blowing a victory with a chunky chip, he returned to the famed 18th at Harbortown Golf Links and whistled a 4-iron from 204 yards into the teeth of the wind to 13 feet and poured in the puff to beat Scottie Scheffler in a sudden death playoff on April 19th. Fitzpatrick admitted he pulled the clutch shot a bit, just the second time, both at 18, that he had used a 4-iron all week, a club he didn't even have in the bag in the second and third rounds, and only was inserted back in the bag at the advice of his caddy, who recognized the wind direction had shifted out of the northwest for the final day. "Just a lot of grit, he said. To hit the 4-iron that I hit there was out of this world." Fitzpatrick's love of the course that has hosted the RBC Heritage since 1969 knows no bounds. Harbortown Golf Links is nestled on grass where the Broad and Beaufort Rivers, Port Royal Sound, and the Atlantic Ocean meet. Pete Dye, in collaboration with Jack Nicklaus, designed a magical layout at the southernmost tip of the Palmetto State, and it's here that the Fitzpatrick family vacationed from their home in England when he was a kid. As a measure of his affection for this place, since 2016, Fitzpatrick has carried a candy cane striped head cover in the shape of the iconic lighthouse standing sentinel in Calabogie Sound behind the 18th green. For the second time, Fitzpatrick has celebrated at his happy place as a championship in the famous tartan jacket. this time after shooting 1 under 70 and outdueling the world number 1. Fitzpatrick, who won the tournament in 2023, became the 11th player to win the event multiple times and joins Chris Gotterup as the second player this season to win multiple events on the PGA Tour. Fitzpatrick, the 2022 U.S. Open champion, did most of his damage before the weekend, storming in front with rounds of 65 to 63 and stood 7 strokes ahead of Scheffler. But he stumbled early in the third round, and for a brief moment, Scheffler, who birdied 5 of his first 6 holes on April 18th and posted 64, had caught him. But Fitzpatrick answered with a birdie at 14 and an eagle at 15 to claim a 3-stroke third round lead. In the final round, Fitzpatrick, 31, started quickly with a 10-foot birdie putt at the first. He also canned a 17-foot birdie putt at the third to stretch the lead to as many as 4, but missed birdie opportunities at the 2 easiest holes on the course, the par 5 second, where he took 3 putts, and missed from 8 feet at the par 5 fifth. Scheffler trimmed the lead back to 3 with a birdie at 9. It stayed that way as Fitzpatrick rescued pars, none bigger than the 20-foot putt that he sank at number 11. Fitzpatrick walked it in, raising his putter 5 feet before it disappeared in the hole. Scheffler would not go quietly, making back-to-back birdies at numbers 15th and 16 to close to within 1 stroke. It looked as if for the second straight week, Scheffler's rally on the weekend would fall short. But Fitzpatrick chunked a chip with his lob wedge from right of the 18th green, the only chip shot he faced all week that was into the grain. Fitzpatrick missed the ensuing 22-foot par putt for his lone bogey of the day. That putt was so fast it was like glass, Parrott said. Tied with a 72-hole total of 18 under 266, they returned to 18, the 4th playoff at the RBC Heritage in the last 5 years. A year ago at Harbour Town, Fitzpatrick's game was in disarray, and he met for the first time there with swing instructor Mark Blackburn, who revamped his approach play. The biggest thing for me was the retraction of my arms, making sure they didn't get long and get away from me. And there's been the biggest difference. Certainly in terms of my approach play, it's been an unbelievable change and just felt so good and just so much more controlled, Fitzpatrick said. After finding the 18th fairway in the playoff, which he had failed to do in regulation, Fitzgerald drilled a 4-iron and finished with a one-handed follow-through that happens due to his overlap, he explained. Sometimes, because I get a little steep, Fitzpatrick said, it just gets stuck in the turf, and then my right hand just loses the grip. He delivered the knockout punch as Scheffler came up short of the green with his approach and pitched an foot and 8 feet past the hole. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. USA Today Life. Noah Wyle relives Robbie's awakening in the pit finale. Brian Alexander. Spoilers ahead. Noah Wyle discusses the pit finale, now streaming on HBO Max. Dr. Robbie had a life-changing, and Noah Wyle says life-saving, Season 2 finale of The Pit. Ever since Dr. Michael Robbie Rabinovich, Noah Wyle, rolled into January Season 2 opening of HBO Max's medical show on his vintage Triumph motorcycle without a helmet, viewers have been concerned about the ER doctor's planned 3-month sabbatical motorcycle trip at the end of the shift. Hospital staff at the fictional Pittsburgh hospital fretted over 15 episodes, 2, as Robbie signaled that the trip might be his final exit and that he is seemingly bent on ending his life during the road trip. The concern continues right up to the final moments of the April 16th finale, now streaming on HBO Max. Robbie has a mental breakthrough while lovingly holding baby Jane Doe, the infant who has been abandoned in the ER. Robbie's plans for self-harm dissipate in that scene, Wiley tells USA Today. He is pretty intent on going on that trip until he holds that baby, to be honest, Wiley says, insisting that Robbie will still go on a motorcycle adventure without the self-destructive aspect. It's going to be a redefined trip, probably unsuccessful in its original intention, but successful in terms of bringing Robbie back on the road to recovery, or closer to it. Wiley shares more insights on Robbie's mindset at the end of Season 2. Why did Robbie take so long to assist the pregnant patient? Robbie stands outside the room watching Dr. Jack Abbott, who's played by Sean Hennessy, and the team urgently attend to a pregnant woman whose health is rapidly deteriorating. His odd reluctance shows that Robbie is at a breaking point. It's like if I scrub in and we lose this mother and I have another baby grow up without a parent, it's on me, Wiley says. I don't need another dead person in my memory banks. I can't handle it. Ultimately, Robbie enters the room, his instincts kick in, and the medical team pulls off a miracle emergency C-section in the most dramatic medical moment of the season. The mother and baby survive, with beaming Robbie playing a key role. It's euphoric, Wiley says. But even discussing the success with Abbott reminds Robbie of the stakes involved if it hadn't gone well. It's killing me because every time it goes wrong, I carry it, Wiley says, explaining Robbie's mindset. It was another potential orphan and another potential tragedy. Does Robbie foster baby Jane Doe? Through much of the finale, head nurse Dana Evans, played by Catherine Lanassa, searches for someone on the medical staff to take in baby Jane Doe with no luck. Even though Robbie has that pivotal moment with baby Jane Doe, and the final ends with the infant in his arms, Wiley says his TV doctor will not take on that responsibility of being a foster kin. It seems like that would be the natural progression of events were it not for who Robbie is, says Wiley. I think Robbie goes home that night and thinks to himself, boy, I wish I had my act together to take that kid and give it a home. Maybe one day I will have it together. Baby Jane Doe and the pediatric room has an impact on Robbie. The Pitt Pediatric Room has enormous meaning for Robbie. It's the colorfully painted room where his mentor, Dr. Adamson, died during the COVID crisis and where Robbie broke down during the season 1 chaos of a mass casualty shooting. It's a bit of a confessional, a graveyard. When Robbie goes in there, it's invoking spirits, Wiley says. The doctor is able to unburden himself to the shrieking infant who, once Robbie swaddles and holds her, falls asleep in his arms. You're holding a baby that can't speak back to you or report what you're about to tell it, Wiley says. We wanted to build to Robbie bearing his soul, and it needed to be back where a lot of his trauma was born, to someone who can't repeat it. Robbie tearfully confesses that he, too, was abandoned by his mother when he was 8 years old, but he made it through. Everything is going to be fine, Robbie says to baby Jane Doe. The motorcycle trip is still on. What happens in season 3? Wiley says Robbie will continue on the trip with a different mindset and knowing the importance of his ER family. He still needs to go and figure out that what he's looking for isn't out there, Wiley says. There's a family he's walking away from who love him and don't want him to check out. Season 3 of The Pit will be set in early November, which gives Robbie a chance to hit the road and return. If he can put some ghosts to bed and deal with some demons and get some coping mechanisms and tools, Robbie might be able to come back even stronger for it, Wiley says. The road to Robbie's emotional recovery is one that can be set over multiple seasons. We want it to be complicated so it can be authentic, Wiley says. We show a guy in season 1 who didn't even know he had a problem. In season 2, he's in pretty strong denial about what to do about it. Season 3, hopefully, he's a little bit more amenable to the possibility of doing the work. Season 4, the work's working. By season 5, this could be holy S, look at where I've been. Entertainment. Live Nation verdict could change the landscape for fans and prices by Justin Ravitz. Live Nation and its subsidiary Ticketmaster lost a major court battle April 15th. But have music fans actually won anything? Following a lengthy trial brought on by the Department of Justice and 39 states plus the District of Columbia in 2024, a New York jury found Live Nation operated an illegal monopoly via anti-competitive practices, which hobbled rival ticket sellers, restricted artists' access to venues, and more. For the average concert goer, the jury found this led to higher prices across genres and markets, from the biggest acts such as Taylor Swift and Harry Styles to up-and-comers. Now that the verdict is in, will fans get some relief? It could be a while before this verdict truly affects the marketplace, if at all. And concert season 2026 certainly won't look any cheaper. For starters, the judge in the case must decide on penalties for Live Nation, and the company plans to appeal. Short of that, the verdict would definitely lower ticket prices. Anthony DeCurtis, contributing editor at Rolling Stone, tells USA Today, the more venues and the more ticket agencies that are available, the more competition there will be, and inevitably, the lower the cost. Even artists are likely to approve this verdict. Eventually, the ruling could also result in better customer service generally, such as greater transparency on pricing, explains Eric Hovenkamp, a law professor and economist at Cornell Law. The DOJ's case basically argues that Live Nation has cut off ticketing rivals from most opportunities to do business, preventing them from growing into significant competitors. With those barriers to competition removed, competition should open up. Brian Barry, executive director of the Ticket Policy Forum, says the verdict will make life better for fans, venues, artists, promoters, and competing ticketing companies. After the appeals process is over, which could take years, he predicts a fundamentally different concert marketplace where tours have access to venues they are currently locked out of. Venues and fans will have the freedom to choose their own ticketing provider. And when you can't make a show, transferring or reselling your ticket won't require navigating a Ticketmaster obstacle course. But how much could increased competition affect pricing? Will ticket prices see a significant decrease, or will it simply mean more choices for consumers? We might see prices slow down a bit, says Dave Brooks, a veteran music industry journalist who writes for Puck Media and hosts the Decibel and Docket podcast. It's highly unlikely that concerts will be cheaper in, say, 2029 than they are in 2026 due to inflation and high demand, but ticket price increases are likely to slow down. The potential dissolution of a Live Nation Ticketmaster monopoly, he says, could open doors to retailers not currently associated with live music. In the future, a fan might have multiple options to buy primary tickets for a major concert like Sabrina Carpenter or BTS. So instead of fans having to log into Ticketmaster to buy tickets, they might be able to buy tickets directly from Amazon or Target or a new ticketing company. That could create more competition in the retail market and slightly push down prices in theory, but not in a significant or noticeable way. But much of this still hinges on what comes out of the appeals process and how strongly a judge rules against Live Nation. Whether that leads to a forced breakup between Live Nation and Ticketmaster or other injunctions remains to be seen. Hovenkamp says, Live Nation has a history of promising to behave and then not following through, which might lead the court to conclude that behavioral remedies aren't going to cut it. I would expect the court to impose some strong injunctions prohibiting the conduct at issue in the case. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. There was one major ticket buyer's headache not addressed at all in this current case. Secondary markets, known as reseller sites, where fans pay steeper prices to see their favorite acts after tickets instantly vanish from Ticketmaster after a sale begins. I do think there's a good chance that ticket scalping gets regulated out of existence in the next few years, Brooks says. The UK recently banned the resale of concert tickets over face value, and a number of state legislatures are considering statewide bans, including California and New York. This type of legislation could potentially eliminate scalping and the huge markups consumers pay on sites like StubHub and SeatGeek. Movies. McCullen, Cole, Separate Art and Opinion in Christophers by Patrick Ryan. New York. Sitting down with Sir Ian McClellan and Michaela Coel, you'd understandably assume they are longtime friends. The actors warmly chit-chat about everything from indigestion to schoolyard bullies to their favorite Broadway shows, and at one point they break out into a warbling duet of Memory from Cats. But the Brits met only last spring in London while filming their razor-sharp buddy comedy, The Christophers, now in theaters nationwide, in which McCullen plays an ornery elderly artist who befriends a disillusioned young forger, Cole, hired to covertly copy his paintings. We didn't start out as chums, just work, says McClellan, 86, seated in a Tribeca hotel suite as Cole, 38, gently holds his arm. Along the way, we discovered we liked each other very much, Cole chimes in. I certainly wasn't going in with any expectation, given how long he's been in the game. But then it was like, oh, God, he is so lovely. Directed by Steven Soderbergh, The Christophers follows the ailing Julian McClellan as he hires a new personal assistant, Laurie, portrayed by the Emmy-winning Cole, HBO's I May Destroy You. But, unbeknownst to Julian, Laurie has been commissioned by his duplicitous kids, James Corden and Jessica Gunning, to finish a series of fabled, incomplete portraits he stashed away years ago in hopes of turning a profit when he dies. The film examines the prickly relationship between criticism and art, as well as the gamble of meeting your heroes. Viewers come to learn that Laurie long ago abandoned her painting ambitions after a chance encounter with Julian, who publicly lambasted her work. Over his nearly 7-decade career on stage and screen, McCullen says he has learned to tune out the noise of others' opinions. I know when I'm being good, and it's not all the time, says McCullen, a 2-time Oscar nominee for Gods and Monsters and Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm my own worst critic, he adds. I also defend myself and understand that the critics have got it wrong, but I've had some scorchingly bad reviews. Cole, meanwhile, has never found negativity to be the best motivator, and she often finds reviews can be quite triggering. The Black Panther star remembers when her first TV series, Chewing Gum, premiered in the UK in 2015. In my early innocent brain, I was like, oh, I'm going to go on Twitter where everyone's going to say, well done, you managed to finish the show, Cole says. Afterward, I learned, oh, don't look at that. I think people put things online that they sometimes don't even think themselves. Cole sees parallels between the Christophers and her other spring movie, Mother Mary, in theaters nationwide April 24th. In the psychological drama, she plays a fashion designer named Sam, who reluctantly reconnects with her long-estranged friend, Mary Anne Hathaway, a troubled pop star seeking a spellbinding new dress. Both Sam and Laurie are somewhat calcified artists living in their own heads, Cole says. They're in pain, and what will free them is making art that is led by some mysterious purpose. They both have that need for connection. Making art feels like making a baby with somebody. The Christophers also deals with mortality as Julian stares down the barrel of his life and wonders how he will be remembered. In his very British way, McCullen says he doesn't concern himself with legacy at all. After injuring his neck and wrist in a scary stage fall in 2024, he remains as prolific as ever, reprising his role as Gandalf in the upcoming Lord of the Rings movie and playing Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol adaptation with Johnny Depp. I work with people now who don't know who Laurence Olivier or Noel Coward were. Giants of my youth, McClellan says. As actors, we have our glory at the end of the show when the audience applauds. You can't expect any more than that. It's lovely when someone says they can remember a performance and to realize that you're a part of people's lives. But come death, forget it, he says with a shrug. We'll look old-fashioned, out of date, and unnecessary. And that's fine. The love for Lovato clearly runs deep on this tour by Melissa Ruggieri, Washington. It's impossible to watch Demi Lovato and not root for her. After more than a decade of working through traumas, addiction, and mental health struggles, Lovato is taking a well-earned victory lap with her It's Not That Deep tour. It's named after her 9th studio album, which dropped in October. At the second date of the tour at Capital One Arena, April 16th in Washington, D.C., Lovato faced an adoring crowd welcoming the rave-up new material. Nearly every song from Deep was cheered, as well as a few bonus tracks, with as much fervency as her well-preserved pop anthems from the past 15-plus years. Lovato, 33, is back in arenas for this 6-week run, which kicked off April 13th in Orlando. In D.C., she mistakenly called for the Orlando crowd to get their hands up before the sultry Fantasy, and is clearly relishing the return to the big stage. And sorry, Lovatics, even though Joe Jonas appeared as a surprise guest in Florida. There were no Jonai in Washington. The opening trio of new songs, Fast, Kiss, and Frequency, were bridged by a relentless, hyperactive beat. Lovato and a squad of female dancers strutted the stage, Lovato looking very Charlie XCX in dark glasses, black spiked-heeled Louboutin boots, and a feathery white wrap as she absorbed the EDM energy and engaged in playful moves with her dance troupe. The diverse crowd was a landscape of athleisure, hot pants, and glitter, pumping fists and shouting along with a remixed rendition of the rock-edged Heart Attack as Lovato basked in a sea of strobes and swooping red lights. Though the minimalist staging, warehouse-styled walls with scaffolding and stairs behind them, allowed for an unobtrusive backdrop, it was sometimes hard to keep track of Lovato. But even when she ducked behind the walls to sing from a ramp or another dark pocket, her voice, a potent instrument, best showcased on heart-wrenching ballads, never wavered. Following the thundering empowerment tale Confidant, Lovato introduced her just-released single, Low Rise Jeans, one of 8 new songs on the deluxe version of her album. It's Not That Deep, Unless You Want It to Be, out April 24th. Performing the pulsing dance track live for only the second time, Lovato writhed on a satin mattress, rarely breaking eye contact with the camera throughout the suggestive chorus. The gyrating was frequent throughout the 100-minute show, particularly on the unsubtle Joshua Tree, which included chair dancing and a lot of entangled limbs featuring Lovato in sparkly black bodysuit with strategic cutouts. But as mesmerizing as the best heavy metal, as mesmerizing as the beat-heavy songs were, particularly the Donna Summer flecked Here All Night and the nostalgic jaunt back to Don't Forget from the fan-selected era of her 2008 debut, Lovato's most stunning moments were the simplest. "You all, this is my first tour married," she yelled, beaming and holding up her ring-adorned finger before Ghost, a song she wrote for her husband of almost a year, Jutes. Standing behind the mic, Stand Alone, Lovato delivered her most impassioned vocal of the show on the ballad, rivaled only by the equally affecting Stone Cold, during which she sat on a set of stairs, her voice soaring into its upper register. As the show wound to its final segment, Lovato talked to her fans with genuine emotion and appreciation. She has weathered more turbulence than many, and her gratitude is sincere. Her fans, meanwhile, are equally grateful to see her standing still. You have been listening to a reading of USA Today for April 21st. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Barbara.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 2 of We Did Okay, Kid by Sir Anthony Hopkins. At 3 o'clock is National Geographic, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print